Ratings agency Standard & Poor's downgrades South Africa's foreign debt rating to junk status. 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children begins despite a no-show from President Jacob Zuma. Good evening to you. This is eNEWS Direct Weekend Edition. I'm Flo Ledwaba.
Very good evening to you. I'm Kate Nokwe.
To comment on our stories, you can find us on Twitter and Facebook at eNEWS Direct.
You can also track our main stories using the following hashtags: downgrade and Springboks.
But first, we start here. Business leaders and economists have warned that the latest ratings downgrades will affect job creation. Their remarks follow S&P Global's downgrade last night of the local currency's ratings to junk. The agency also pushed South Africa's foreign debt further into sub-investment grade. Meanwhile, Moody's held both its local and foreign ratings just at the edge of investment grade. Senior business reporter Devin Morgan has the details.
After numerous warnings, S&P Global finally acted on its threat. It's pushed South Africa further into junk status. The ratings agency says the country's weak economic growth has led to a deterioration in public finances. Moody's capped its local and foreign debt ratings at investment grade, with a review to downgrade. The ratings table shows South Africa lies well into junk with two of the three major ratings agencies. Economists say those looking for jobs should be worried.
The ratings are going to impact the rand. The rand is going to get weaker. Bond yields, where governments and big firms and state-owned enterprises lend money, are going to go up. So their cost of capital is going to increase. So that's going to stop a lot of projects. It increases the risk of doing business in South Africa.
The S&P downgrade comes after Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba shocked markets last month by flagging sharply weaker growth expectations, a wider budget deficit and rising government debt. Reacting to the latest news, Treasury says it will use its annual budget next year to outline what it called a decisive policy to strengthen its fiscal framework. It says it aims to restore business and consumer confidence while pushing for inclusive growth. Devin Morgan, Johannesburg.
South Africans need to help governments stave off a further downgrading of the country's economy. That's the word from the ANC in reaction to S&P Global's decision to downgrade the country's foreign debt to junk status. The governing party's call is in stark contrast to opposition parties and the Labour movement, who've laid the blame firmly at the government's feet. Reporter Nicholas Bauer filed this report.
Reaction to the latest bad news for South Africa's economy has been mixed. S&P Global decided on Friday to junk the country's debt. The news, coupled with Moody's announcement of a 3-month review before they potentially make the same move, sent jitters across the nation.
The ANC says while it is disappointed at the latest downgrade, it believes South Africa has been granted an ideal opportunity to rescue the situation in the next 90 days. And the governing party added that South Africans need to remain optimistic during these turbulent times.
The ANC remains confident the National Treasury has what it takes to stave off a further downgrade. But the official opposition disagrees completely.
The rating agencies, who have given us the benefit of the doubt in the past, have now lost patience. And they've lost patience because they do not seem to have any confidence in the new and mysterious Presidential Fiscal Committee holding the fiscal line and taking the hard decisions that are necessary to stabilize public finances in South Africa.
Even within the tripartite alliance, there's not much confidence that things will get better very soon.
When we have a fiscal policy and a monetary policy where there is no direction, and you have a cabinet full of people who are really telling you that they are prepared to pick up the currency if it falls, we are going to have to really live with this reality. For us, we are hopeful. Really, we are looking forward to December conference of the ANC. Hopefully, it will give us a sense of a direction, because currently we no longer believe that the fifth administration under President Jacob Zuma is really going to give us anything.
This really is the last chance saloon for the South African economy. If things don't change substantially in the next 3 months, a third and final downgrade by Moody's is an absolute certainty. Nicholas Bauer, Johannesburg.
President Jacob Zuma withdrew from today's launch of the 16 Days of Activism shortly after it became clear the event was going to be poorly attended. The government says Zuma had to withdraw due to other commitments. Reporter Sandy McCowan filed this report.
At 10:30 a.m. when President Zuma was meant to take to the podium, the hall, which seats almost 4,000 people, was less than a quarter full. An estimated 500 people were in attendance, including officials, journalists and performers, despite 30 buses and taxis collecting people in the area. T-shirts promoting Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma's presidential campaign were handed out to those patiently waiting for the government to launch this year's 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence. Finally, it was announced that the president had withdrawn.
We received a notification that the president is no longer able to come and be with us. We largely, I think, were to blame.
Those in attendance had their own ideas of why Zuma didn't attend.
Zuma didn't come today because of one thing. He did knew people won't come. Eastern Cape is fully behind Cyril Ramaphosa. Zuma is campaigning for his wife. We don't want that. As Eastern Cape, we are fully behind Cyril Ramaphosa.
After hours of waiting and with the hall remaining 3/4 empty, Minister Susan Shabangu finally took to the stage to represent the president.
This is a continuous campaign simply because the problem of violence against women and children continues in a society almost every day. This year we have witnessed the worst and the most shocking incidents of violence against women and children.
It was in this same venue 2 years ago that Zuma addressed a half-empty hall on Reconciliation Day in December. Sandy McCowan, Port Elizabeth.
A former KwaZulu-Natal Premier and provincial ANC chair Ndebele has urged warring factions in the province to unite and work together. In an exclusive interview with Pamandla Goge, Ndebele says the governing party needs to urgently revive itself to regain lost ground.
He led the party during difficult times in the province. Former ANC provincial chair Ndebele says KwaZulu-Natal's warring factions need each other. He says tensions in the provincial ANC are deep and historical. Now, for the first time, Ndebele has revealed how divisions between himself and ANC Treasurer General Zweli Mkhize threatened the party's unity in the province.
We met after the conference, 2002. We met for 13 hours one-on-one with Comrade Zweli Mkhize. And each one was saying, they say you say about me. And this is, they say you say about me. And we went through all these things. And we said, no, but this thing is not correct. So after this 13-hour marathon meeting of the two of us, the war is over. If it's around us, forget it, it's over. We can no longer do it in any of our names.
Now, KZN's longest-serving former provincial chair believes current political tensions can be resolved peacefully.
Stop the animosities, stop the feuds, stop all these conflicts. Not that there will be no disagreement. The ANC is a very argumentative organization.
Ndebele is leading a panel set up by the party's National Executive Committee to investigate violence at its Eastern Cape's provincial conference in August. Ndebele, who was recalled from his posting as High Commissioner to Australia to face fraud and corruption charges, did not want to comment on the case. Siphamandla Goge, Durban.
A human trafficking survivor is using her ordeal to help young girls learn self-defense. Liana Als was trafficked and held as a sex slave for 4 years. Her experience has led her to team up with an organization that teaches self-defense techniques in Gauteng schools. Our reporter Leranzo Temba takes a look.
Liana Als was not in control of her life. A man she'd befriended took over her life, confining her to a house in the east of Pretoria. Addicted to drugs and working as a sex worker, The mother of 3 says her life at the hands of her trafficker was miserable.
I was beaten with a broomstick, dog chain, I was kicked, the fist. It all depended what was around him to beat me with. I know who my children are, and should I decided to escape, my family would be the first target. They won't hurt me, they will hurt the people that's closest to me.
A self-defense course helped Alice regain control of her life.
When you teach awareness, you become aware of your surroundings. A lot of people don't. You know, they walk, they've got the earphones in. When you're walking, you've got your earphones in, you're a target straight away.
Transformation is also training young girls through a program at schools in Gauteng.
It doesn't stop with the kids. The teachers are involved, the parents are involved. It's about a fitness, a self-defense, a body empowerment, a self-confidence mindset. And that's the reason we're going to the schools.
It's about defending yourself and lifting your spirit and lifting your chin. You walk with self-confidence. Nothing can touch you.
The organization aims to empower women and schoolgirls from grade 8 up to matric. But it's also dependent on crowdfunding in order to expand its reach. Leranzo Temba, Johannesburg.
Right, more local and international news after the break. And these volunteer firefighters in Cape Town show off their skills using innovative ways to put out blazes. Stay with us. Welcome back. In the midst of a severe drought in the Western Cape, volunteer firefighters are using innovative ways to put out flames. Members of the NGO Volunteer Wildfire Services showed off some of their skills at its open day in Cape Town. Our reporter Artie Narsi checked in with the firefighters.
It's all in a day's work for these volunteer firefighters. Not only do they have day jobs, they also spend hours of their spare time fighting fires in the Western Cape. To be exact, 11,000 hours in just the past year.
We currently have 4 bases, one in Newlands where we are today, one in Fischhoek, one in Stellenbosch and one in Grabo. Through those 4 bases with our 280 members, we fight fires anywhere from Cape Point all the way out to the Breda River.
But fighting fires is a costly task.
We rely very heavily on the public to give their 20 Rand a month or 100 Rand when they can, and all those things add up to assist us in keeping vehicles on the road, kitting out volunteers with the equipment that they need and the uniforms. Fighting fires is expensive. It costs us about 2.5 million Rand a year to run the VWS, and we have to get those funds from wherever we can.
The team uses other innovative ways to tackle the flames, a necessary help in alleviating water usage in the drought-stricken province.
We use hand tools primarily, so we go out and we beat the fires and we cut fire lines and we clear bush. It's more affectionately known as high-speed gardening. So for us as an organization, it doesn't directly impact us, but obviously it will have an effect on all the other organizations that have the resources and have the specialized equipment to get water up onto the mountain.
Artie Narsi, Cape Town.
United Nations Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed has urged South Africans to invest in the potential of women. Mohammed delivered the 15th annual Nelson Mandela Lecture in Cape Town.
Gender equality was central to Madiba's vision of equality and central to the struggle for freedom. This was a result of women's tireless mobilization. But it was also a reflection of leadership that understood that equality cannot be selectively applied. Leadership who held a vision of a society where there was no discrimination on the basis of race, class, gender, or any other category. Nelson Mandela taught that freedom is indivisible, noting that the chains on any one of my people were the chains on all of them. The chains on all of my people were the chains on me. Speaking before the first Parliament in 1994, he declared that freedom cannot be achieved unless the women have been emancipated from all forms of oppression. He practiced what he preached, but we still should reflect, are we practicing what we preach?
News from further afield now. Egyptian police have revealed that yesterday's attack at a mosque in North Sinai was carried out by a group of at least 25 to 30 gunmen. They say they were carrying an Islamic State flag. More than 300 people have now been confirmed dead since the deadly attack in the North Sinai region. The country's military says it's conducted airstrikes on terrorist targets in response to this. Ousted Zimbabwean Finance Minister Ignatius Chombo has appeared in a Harare court on corruption charges. It's the first time the minister's appeared in public since his detention almost 2 weeks ago. He's one of a number of ministers and officials thrown out of the ZANU-PF party on Sunday. The charges against him relate to his term as local government minister 7 years ago. Kenya's main opposition party, the National Super Alliance, is stepping up its efforts to resist President Uhuru Kenyatta's government. It's announced the launch of its People's Assembly initiative, which it claims will restore democracy and the rule of law. The party insists, however, that this is not a parallel government, but a process of reconfiguring the political space.
Good evening, everyone. It's been a very wet start to the weekend for much of South Africa, including Gauteng and the surrounding provinces. But as we head into tomorrow, the area will start clearing out, but there could still be a few showers over the Lowveld and the adjacent escarpment. A weak front is going to brush over the Western Cape's south coast in the morning, bringing rain to the area, and those conditions will continue spreading along the eastern coastline of the country later on. By afternoon, there'll also be thunder showers over KwaZulu-Natal, while it's going to be a partly cloudy and dry day for Mahikeng, Pretoria, as well as Johannesburg. Here's your detailed provincial forecast. In the Northern Cape, it's going to be a sunny and hot afternoon for most places, but cooler and quite windy along the coastline. That front will bring some light rain to the southern parts of the Western Cape. There could also be some early showers around the peninsula, and later on it becomes very windy for Cape Town as well as Langebaan. Light rain possible for the coastal belt of the Eastern Cape as well as the adjacent interior, and in the afternoon a couple of thunder showers possible around the Drakensberg as well. Afternoon thunder showers for much of KwaZulu-Natal. Those will be scattered over the central parts of the province, while in the north only isolated Newcastle and Ladysmith you get to a high of 28 degrees. Dry for much of Mpumalanga, except for a few showers over the eastern parts. It is going to be a warmer day for the province. And in Limpopo, we see some high temperatures over the western bushveld, Lephalale, Tabazimbi and Bela Bela, all reaching a high of 30 degrees. Warm to hot over the northwest. We don't expect any rain over this province. Temperatures in the high 20s and low 30s. And for the Free State, it will be a mostly dry day, but there is a possibility for a few thunder showers around Harrismith. And after a cold morning in Gauteng, Johannesburg, you drop down to 8 degrees overnight. Temperatures recover quite nicely for the afternoon, climbing into the mid-20s. It is going to be a dry day all across the area. Here's a look at Monday's weather conditions. Thunder showers returning to the central parts of South Africa, while it's going to be sunny and hot over the Cape provinces. And on Tuesday, the pattern persists and it remains cloudy for both Bombela and Polokwane, both reaching a high of 23.
Right, here's a recap of the main stories. Ratings agency Standard & Poor's downgrades South Africa's foreign debt rating to junk status. 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children begins despite a no-show from President Jacob Zuma. Well, that's a wrap from the eNEWS Direct team. To share your views, you can send an email to enewsdirect@etv.co.za.
Continue chatting to us online or on Twitter and Facebook. That handles at eNEWS Direct. Your Saturday night feature, Harry Potter and the Deathly House, is coming up next.
All right, until next time, good night.
Cheers.